Youngest firefighter killed in the September 11th attacks. Working for Ladder 11, he was age 22. Both my brother and I worked for Mayor Giuliani. Mayor Giuliani made a commitment to my family at my brother's memorial on his birthday, October 5th, 2001. And that commitment was to be there for my family in our darkest time. And if I ever needed anything, to reach out to him. In 2002, Mayor Giuliani and my brother, Michael Camerata, were inducted into the Little League World Series Hall of Excellence. The motto for Little League Baseball is courage, character, and loyalty. And not only did my brother share those qualities, Mayor Giuliani did and does to this day. What Mayor Giuliani did for this country, this city, and this state shall never be forgotten. A few years later, after Mayor Giuliani made his bid for the presidency, I reached out to the mayor, and I took him to task on his commitment to my family. Mayor Giuliani inspired me to become an attorney through the great work he did not only as a mayor, but as a U.S. attorney for this city and state and this country. We can't forget the good work he did and how he cleaned up this city. I requested a letter of recommendation to law school because he was the #1 person who inspired me to go. He gave that letter of recommendation. A few short months later, my mother passed away. He found out about it and wrote a heartfelt letter to me. Although the letter said Mr. Camerata, he crossed it off in purple ink and wrote Joe. That shows his humanization and personalization to me and my family. Rudy Giuliani was there for me during my darkest time, and I'm here for him during his darkest time. Rudy Giuliani was there for America during its darkest time, and America needs to be there for Rudy Giuliani during his darkest time. We cannot forget what he did for us. The $148 million judgment against Mayor Rudy Giuliani is astronomical, unconstitutional, and un-American. Judges have the power to reduce judgments and verdicts. It happens every day. If there was a car accident here on 7th Avenue and 50th Street, and a jury awarded somebody $60 million for a broken arm, that does not mean the person would get $60 million. The judges would likely step in and reduce the verdict or judgment to a verdict or judgment that suits the injury. This $148 million judgment does not fit the alleged acts that took place. Even as taken as true, that judgment is punitive in nature. It's meant to punish. My client has turned over millions of dollars in assets to date. The New York cooperative apartment could be north of $6 million was turned over. Valuables, jewelry, watches, countless watches turned over in compliance. He is ordered and turned over a vehicle without even having it appraised. We weren't even given the opportunity to have the vehicle appraised. Turn it over, the judge said. That's not how it works. The CPLR, the Civil Practice Laws and Rules in New York State, have certain exemptions. That vehicle is worth under a certain amount, $5,500. It does not have to be turned over. Now, there's been arguments that, oh, it's Rudy Giuliani's car, it's got to be worth more. That doesn't make a difference. It's a piece of metal. This is just a few of the things that are happening. We're standing in front of Wilkie Farr and Gallagher LLP. This law firm has approximately 1,000 attorneys worldwide, with offices, I believe, in Paris, in London, in the United States, multiple states, such as Chicago, California, if I'm not mistaken. They have north of 10 attorneys working on this file. The story of David and Goliath is going to continue. It's one versus all. It's one being the United States of America versus all. This should not take place the way it's taking place. We will not allow it. Conveniently this morning, and it's no secret because it was filed in federal court, Wilkie Farr filed a motion for contempt to hold Mr. Giuliani in contempt for allegedly violating a preliminary or permanent injunction, as they call it. The tone of the message was directed to me in some sort of way, possibly to dissuade me from continuing here today and possibly continuing as his attorney. We will not relent. They are doing everything they can to stop Mayor Giuliani from having a formidable defense. We're not going to allow it. That's not going to take place in the United States. That's not who we are. Things must change. Things have to change. On November 5th, 2024, the people went to the polls. The Americans are sick and tired, on both sides and independent, of the witch hunts, political persecutions, the indictments, the trials, the convictions, the impeachments, the civil cases, the judgments. They're sick and tired of it. This isn't about red and blue or black or white. This is about red, white, and blue. And this is not what we do in this country. This is not what we do in this state. It must end. The judgment does not fit the alleged acts. This firm is doing everything in their power to break an 80-year-old patriot to this country, an American who did so many good things for us. In the 80s, took the RICO Act and his great legal mind applied it to take down the 5 families of the mafia. Are we forgetting how he cleaned up the city in the 90s and how he responded to the biggest attack in the history of this country, right here in this city, a few miles away to my left? And now we're just going to hang him out to dry? People should not forget who Rudy Giuliani is. He is the same person who made the commitment to me that day. He is the same person who walked someone down the aisle for their wedding whose father died in 9/11. That's who Rudy Giuliani is. Reaching out to him and him being there for me and meeting me in his office to give me a letter of recommendation never made the press. It never made the press because that's who Rudy Giuliani is behind the scenes. That's the man that he is. He's a man who fights for what he believes in and fights for justice. And I expect this country, city, and state to do the same. Next to me to my left is Madeline Bram. I would like Madeline Bram to tell her personal story about Rudy Giuliani, and then I may take some questions after. Madeline?
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Thanking you all for being here this morning. My name is Madeline Bram. I am the CEO of Rescue Angel. I am also the mother of a homicide victim, Sergeant Hassan Correa, who was killed in 2018 in Harlem. The case was handled in Manhattan Criminal Court by Alvin Bragg, who he let 2 of the 4 killers go. He completely dismissed gang assault and murder indictments against 2 of the killers. One of them is currently out. He was let out 2 weeks ago after only serving 7 years. I want to take it back a little bit to my old school people who are listening. Back in the 90s, in the middle of the crack and crime era in New York City, hundreds and thousands of us were caught up in that whole entire crack epidemic. Rudy Giuliani and Governor Pataki were in office at the time. Rudy implemented alternatives to incarceration, where instead of us going to jail for committing crimes that we would not have normally committed unless for a drug habit, to long-term inpatient drug programs, 18 to 24 months, 24 to 36 months. I personally am a product of the crack era. I went to a place called Samaritan Village up in Ellenville, New York. There was Samaritan Village, Daytop, Phoenix House, a whole bunch of different long-term inpatient drug programs that were implemented as alternatives to incarceration. Hundreds and thousands of lives were saved. People would not be alive today if it were not for Rudy Giuliani implementing those alternatives to incarceration and getting people the drug treatment that they so desperately needed. If the people in my community want to be honest about it and step up and know that if it weren't for Rudy, they would not be alive today. Fast forward, after my son was killed, Rudy was one of the only people who gave me a platform, because the Democrats that run New York City, all right, that were responsible for letting the homicidal maniacs out in the street, like the one 3 days ago who stabbed them 3 people and killed, all right? If it weren't for the Democrats, they wouldn't give me any type of support or any type of anything when I went to them for help to get justice for my son. Rudy was the only one who called me. He invited me into his home, the very same apartment that he has to surrender. I sat in his living room for a whole hour, and Rudy did like a fireside chat with me, and he interviewed me. Millions of people saw my story. And after that is when all of the other news organizations started to galvanize towards me and were interested in the story. But again, the Democrats, I went to every single last one of them. Every single last one, including Al Sharpton. They slammed the phone down in my face and said, "What do you want us to do? You know how many people get killed in this city? What do you want from us?" You know, so those are the type of things that I was up against. Also, Rudy donated money to my GoFundMe to help me pay my rent. I was getting ready to be evicted, and this was recently. So this is one of the reasons, a lot of the reasons why Rudy Giuliani is America's mayor, and people love him because of the everyday American stories, and he cares about the regular American people. I'm sorry, excuse me. I'm passionate because I don't like what's happening, okay? What they're doing to him is political persecution. They're only doing it because he was Trump's lawyer, okay? In my opinion, we all see and saw what was happening during the time of whatever Rudy is being accused of. They want us to not believe our lying eyes. But we all saw it. Millions of people saw it, right? Why we just pinpoint one particular person, I know. I'm not going to go there. We cannot just pinpoint one particular person. We can, are we going to sue 1 million people? Because I do believe 1 million people actually saw. Okay. I have to tread lightly. I have to tread lightly. But all you today that are watching this, okay, especially in the black and brown community, you all know that Rudy played a part in you being alive today, to live to see another day. We need Rudy back in office right now, if you ask me. He was the only mayor with the backbone to actually stand up and do what was necessary. We have all these sick and suffering addicts in the street that are dying slowly right before our eyes, and we're stepping over their bodies like we don't see them. Rudy was the only one with enough compassion, care, and concern to actually do the heavy lifting, stop picking at the low-hanging fruit, make the investments, and get these people that we see in the street dying every single day, slowly committing suicide right before our eyes. It is unacceptable. Unacceptable. So I thank you for your time here today.
I have a few minutes to take a few questions.
Mr. Camarada, David Zier, Real America's Voice News. I wanted to ask you what avenues are left for relief for the mayor, and what's your next step?
Yeah, there's plenty of avenues left. As you know, there's cases being litigated all over the country. Right now, a contempt motion was filed in Washington, D.C. this morning. And make no mistake, that wasn't just filed today for any reason. This press conference release came out last night that it was going to happen at 2:30 a.m. Make no mistake, that took place in direct response to us being here today. And we will not have our speech stifled as long as we're within the bounds of the law and the First Amendment. There are other avenues that are available. As we know that there is an appeal that's taking place as to the judgment that's in place for $148 million. I'm not going to comment on that. There are attorneys working on that at this time.
Mr. Camerata, can you speak
Who are you with?
Sorry, I'm Jen Peltz from AP. Turning back to today's filing, can you address how, in your view, the comments cited in the filing don't run afoul of the agreement you signed?
I've got to be honest with you. I received the filing while I was on public transportation coming here to address the people. So I have not dug into it. I'm not going to offer comment on it at this time.
The New York Times. Has the co-op on Madison Avenue been transferred in full? Are the shares now in possession of the two plaintiffs?
I believe that everything has been turned over. If not, it's still in the process, but my client, Mayor Giuliani, has complied. The value of that apartment, and it's no secret, is probably north of $6 million. I'm not going to comment on anything that has to do with voter fraud. That's not what I'm here for. That's not what this case is about. Next.
Are there additional assets that are still remaining to be turned over?
No comment.
Excuse me?
Are there additional assets that are still remaining to be turned over? Or
Well, there are certain items that I believe are in dispute. First and foremost, his means of transportation that was ordered to be turned over, which we did, but we're raising issue with that because it was never valued. And again, there are laws in place that lay out what exemptions are. And I believe that that automobile is exempt among other items that they're looking to take. I mean, he's given over 90 to 95% of what's in his possession at this point. And this law firm is not stopping. I think it's a seek and destroy mission of America's mayor.
Joe, I have a question about the actual judgment. I don't think a lot of people understand that he was never actually found liable. It was the default. I don't know if you commented on that, but just talking about a quick comment on how Rudy actually never was found liable. It was a default judgment.
I'm just going to comment generally that there was no trial and there was no jury that came back with a verdict that defamation was reached. There are other means that took place to lead to that and to the judgment. I'll let those attorneys comment on that.
Mr. Camerata, have the memorabilia, the Yankees things, the things that were in the New York apartment, have those been turned over as well?
I believe everything in the apartment has been turned over. There are certain disputes about clothing and items that he could wear on his back. Those items we're definitely going to be dealing with as well.
Take the man's clothes off his back.
Peter Sensation, New York Post. So I have two questions. One, are you saying that the Mercedes is worth less than the $5,500 civil limit? Or?
I'm gonna tell you what I believe. I don't know what the car is worth,
Right.
and we cannot have valid due process in this country. The bottom line is this: certain assets need to be appraised and valued. There wasn't even a minimum Google search, to my knowledge, conducted of what the value of the vehicle was. It was turn it over. And that vehicle needs to be appraised. I don't know the working condition of the vehicle. I don't know whether or not it's completely roadworthy at this point. It may have been roadworthy a month ago on November 5th or November 4th. I don't know if it's roadworthy today as we stand. It needs to be valued before it's turned over. Albeit we turned it over, but I believe that in the appellate court, certain assets might come back.
And, sorry, does he have any other vehicle or mode of transportation?
Not that I'm aware of.
Will Mr. Giuliani appeal this case as his previous lawyers have said?
Which case? The judgment case? There is an ongoing appeal that's going on in another court. Any other questions? was a mutual connection, and I'll leave it at that. And again, Rudy Giuliani inspired me to be an attorney who was there for my family in my darkest time, and I'm certainly going to be there for him in his darkest time. Any other questions? That's it. Thank you. I know, that's why I made you go first.
L-I-N-E B-R-A-M-E.
B-R-A-M-E, Brain.
Brain, that's it, B-R-A-M-E.
So sorry, I'm going to ask you.
M-A-D-E-L-I-N-E B-R-A-M-E. B-R-A-M-E. Brain. Brain.
Did Mr. Giuliani reach out to you to come out today, or how did that happen?
Yes, he did. Or his associate.
I'm sorry, it was a little loud, so I heard most of what it was, but you'd appeared on his podcast, is that right, in his apartment?
Yes,
in Manhattan?
yes.
And what was the topic of you appearing on the show?
Bail reform. Repealing bail reform and the murder of my son.
Ask the news guys.
This is Karen?
Yeah.
Is that yours?
That's me.
Joe, is this yours?
No, that's Harry Oates.
Oh, okay. Harry? Harry?
Thank you,